Once you get into the detail of it, you start thinking, oh shit, I'm actually carrying like 5 bags of luggage. I don't know if I can make that trip from here to there in 5 minutes. Basically what we're talking about is how to use your current experience, how to use certain items, certain objects, certain places and certain environments to connect into the goal that you're looking for. And we're talking about like how last year I went to Japan and the whole trip, we went for like 5 weeks, but the whole trip manifested in about 2 months. We made the decision and then 2 months later we were there. And we started from like no money, like nothing. And the process that we used was we went to different restaurants. We found restaurants here in Australia that actually mapped out to similar restaurants that were in Japan and that had the same vibe and the same feeling. Not the like the westernized version of Japanese food that we have here, like, sometimes the sushi trains and stuff like that is completely different. But we actually found places with real Japanese people who actually were from Japan, who cooked real Japanese food, like authentically, and we went there consistently every week, every 2 weeks, and really just sat in that energy. And that allowed us to really manifest that trip a lot faster because we got more into the feeling of that. And some of the other things that we used was like, actually learning the language, because when you're there, when you're in that environment, when you're in that culture and you learn that language, your whole mindset actually completely shifts. Do you know that like the English language, we have a certain thought process when we construct sentences in English. In another language, like in Mandarin, in Vietnamese, in Japanese, the whole grammar is completely different. So the way that you approach sentences, you actually have to think completely differently when you create a sentence. And the process of just doing that is completely changes the patterns that you have. Number one, it breaks up the patterns that you currently have, but then again, it gets you more closer to the energy of what that goal was going to be, which was going to Japan for us. So another part of that was actually looking for the details in what the trip was going to be like. If we're going to go for that long, obviously you're going to have to figure out where you're going to go, what you're going to do, what your day looks like, what types of food you're going to have, what the travel was from A to B to C to D, between the different hotels and between the actual times and the real time that the train was going to come, and finding out the realistic time it was going to take from to get to here, to here, to here, to here, to here, to here. And just the process of researching that and mapping out, okay, this is what day 1 is going to look like. This is what day 2 is going to look like. This is what day 3 is going to look like. You actually create a framework of what your actual real life journey is going to be like for that goal, for that particular goal. Like actually breaking it down, you create the framework of that and it becomes more real to you, right? So just like our trip to go to Japan, we had to basically break down every single step of the way, the travel, how realistic it was to actually move from station A to station B, and whether we could travel between there. Because then once you get into the detail of it, you start thinking, oh shit, I'm actually carrying like 5 bags of luggage. I don't know if I can make that trip from here to there in 5 minutes. When you get into that kind of detail, then it becomes so real to you that you start to live it. And before you even have created that goal, if you can get to the point where you're living your goal right now without it having manifested in your physical reality, then it becomes so much easier for you to start to experience that in your world and start to experience that in your life. Because when you do that, it doesn't matter if you go or not. Just the whole process of us creating the trip, creating the journey, and going to the restaurants and going to different places and really tapping into what that feels like, that process in itself was such a great process for us that it didn't really matter if we ended up going to Japan or not. It didn't really matter.